But I had to walk through all of that to understand, Angie, this is not the way. This is not the way. So those healthy boundaries, that prayer, that support system, you need all of that in order to help you make sound decisions. Yes.
I can see that.
Yes.
Today on M&B Media, we have Miss Angelina Taylor on with us today. How are you?
I am doing well.
Good.
No complaints.
Absolutely. Good to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Your day going all right?
It sure is.
Wow. Yeah. We love to jump right in our interviews to have those genuine conversations with genuine people just like yourself, just to highlight things that you're doing, in the community and whatever,
Okay.
Talk about your life. So the first question we love to ask is, where are you from?
Oh boy. So I am from Prince George County,
Okay.
and I always ask, do you know where it is?
Yes.
Oh boy. So my parents went to Virginia State, and my dad grew up in Prince George.
Okay.
My mom grew up in Kentucky, but we landed in Prince George.
How was that growing up?
Boring.
It was boring. Why you say that?
So I grew up in the 70s. So no cable, no internet, a landline, and my parents did not believe in call waiting. So I see,
stay busy.
So my dad did not agree with the phone being busy. So you had short, limited conversations because people had to be able to call the house.
Got you.
However, it was boring on the outside, but it's the reason I ended up loving to read and loving to listen to music and dance.
Wow.
Because that's all I had.
Wow. Very disciplined parents.
Very. They were both teachers.
Wow.
So I had a very structured and disciplined childhood. Yes.
So when you finally grew up, 17, 18, how was that for you when you left home?
I was racing to leave Prince George County.
Got you.
I ended up at ODU. I loved it and stayed in this area because I love the 757.
Got you.
Yeah.
So you pretty much learned about life in the 757,
I would say that. Yeah. I would say that my parents gave me a very strong Christian foundation. And then, of course, being me, I had to figure out some things on my own. So this is not a nice thing that I should add to the video, but I ended up meeting a lady at the gym this week who is married to a Navy man who is retired. And I asked her about how they met. And I said, believe it or not, when I got to ODU, rule number 1 was don't date somebody in the Navy. And I thought that was a strange thing to be told. But like you said, I had to learn to navigate the 757. And for whatever reason, people thought that would be a good thing for me to know moving forward. But I learned to meet and mingle all kinds of people.
Wow. What's that one thing that you do in life that if you wake up 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning that you could do it without thinking about?
Write.
Okay.
I love writing. And if I wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's usually because something is on my mind. It doesn't always have to be something heavy.
Right.
But because I have so many things, I'm a busy lady. So between church and my fitness life, my friends, my family, I just have a lot on my plate. And so one way that I process is through writing.
Journaling?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think before I ever wrote my first book, I had a group chat. And those friends in the group chat have been with me since college. And that's really how I got to formulate my thoughts. And then when Facebook started, I eventually started a fitness blog. And that led into writing my first book.
Okay, that's a great segue. You wake up in the morning, you write.
Yes.
You know, you got 3 books out.
Yes.
Let's name them. Getting Fit for Life.
Yes.
I Dated the Devil and His Brother. My mama said, let's talk about the first one. Getting Fit for Life. What was that all about?
Okay, so in another season of my life, I was a workaholic. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with work, but it's a problem when it becomes out of balance. And I remember this particular school year, I had gone to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And even though I came home, I was working on my laptop till 10 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. And I proudly wrote a Facebook post. I just worked over 12 hours. And I thought it was a good thing. So that was the beginning of the school year. Mm. So around February, my awesome principal scheduled a Saturday training, and everybody was excited because we were going to be paid for it and we could wear jeans. Only I went into the closet and my jeans didn't fit. Mm. And then I said, okay, well, I got one size up. Those didn't fit. So basically I had gained 2 sizes in one school year.
Gotcha.
And as much as I loved the working, I realized that I really had no life outside of work. Mm. So my life was work, couch, and fast food in between. So a friend of mine had been she was teaching Zumba classes. After taking them for a while, her husband said, why don't you teach? Mm. And I got to see her do a demo at church. And I said, that looks like fun. So October 16th, 2012 is my Zumba anniversary day.
Got you.
I took my first class. I fell in love. I started blogging. I just love it. Mm. So I had 3 friends at separate times say, when are you going to write a book? And I said, I'm not. Mm. And they said, but you write every day. And it finally clicked with the third person. Okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Yes, I can write this book.
And you wrote the book.
Mm-hmm. Getting Fit for Life.
Wow.
Yes.
Now this is the one I want to talk about.
Oh boy.
I Dated the Devil and His Brother. What was that about?
Okay, so what had happened was, remember we said my parents had this nice foundation for me, mm-hmm. and they had rules and structure, and I had to figure out life on my own.
Got you.
So, and remember that rule that said, don't date, I shouldn't say this, but I've got to be honest.
Talk about it.
So I met a retired Navy person, and he really was wonderful, but he had a drinking problem. And I was not prepared. So let me just say this. The title in my head, as a writer, you have to draw you have to be creative. You have to draw your reader in, draw in your audience. I never would say either of these people were devils. However,
I
will say though that sometimes the enemy puts people in your path to get you off of your path. Mm-hmm. So I was still in my workaholic phase when I met the first person. And so I poured all of my love and energy into him. And let's talk about real talk stuff. I've been a church girl most of my life. I had the wilderness season for a minute. But being church girl, I thought, well, I can just fast and pray and he'll put the bottle down. And I kept fasting and praying and fasting and praying. I'm like, he's not putting the bottle down. So the blessing is he broke up with me.
Got you.
And I remember during that season, Bishop McBath was preaching a series about the fig tree and how Jesus walked past the fig tree and cursed it because it wasn't bearing any fruit. And he broke up with me on an Easter Sunday. I listened to Bishop preach that message and I said, that was me. I wasn't producing anything in my life because all of my focus was on him. So fast forward, In that season, I read the Bible in 1 year. It was very, very freeing. So all of the hurt and pain that I had at the end of that relationship, I finally said, okay, God, I've done it my way for 35 years. Now I'm going to do it your way.
Wow.
And so I read the word, and I remember, there's a verse that talks about Moses having to wear a veil. I remember I started reading the Bible in September, and by May I felt this glow, and it was nothing but the word of God that really, I wanted to say ministered to me, but it mended me. So all those broken places, so that was relationship number one. Relationship number two, that was Angie being hard-headed. The back of the book says because it's three of us writing. One, I wrote it with my name. The other two are anonymous, but it says we knew who he was when we met him and we dated him anyway. So I met the second one and I was like, I'm going to do it. But I had to learn my lesson.
Got you.
Yes.
Got you.
So that's book number 2.
Wow. Mama said. My mama said.
Okay. So as you know, 1:00 in the morning, what do? I write. So Mother's Day 2017, I decided I was going to write a short story about my mom as her gift for Mother's Day. Now, the original title was To the Meanest Mother in All the World. Now, if you see the face over my shoulder on that painting, she was not the meanest mother, but I was an ornery daughter. So being the ornery, I want to do it my way. I know y'all taught me right, but you know what? I'm a bit of a rebel, so I'm going to do things my way. And my mom had this little pinch right here that she would get me. Like right here, she would get me. And I knew I had overstepped my boundaries when that grip came out. But my mom taught me healthy boundaries. My mom taught me that no means no, and that it's okay to say no. And so I guess I was around my mid-40s at that time. And I said, she has taught me so much. Let me let her know that I heard her. So when I tell you that lady was awesome, so I write this very short story and she laughed and she's reading it. The next thing I know, she is at the photocopier at Kinko's making copies and giving it away. I was like, Ma, this is going to be developed into a book. Please stop giving it away. But that's how she was.
Wow.
She was so excited that her lessons were not in vain.
Wow.
So from 2017 to 2019, I went through a whole lot. And so I didn't finish the book until 2019. But I basically took 10 of her life lessons and put it in that book. And I hope mothers and daughters will read it together, because I think moms need to know that their daughters hear them, and the daughters need to know just how precious your mother is. Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned to me that your mom passed away.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you?
Unexpectedly.
Got you.
So my mom was a world traveler. So she saw all 7 continents and all 50 states, like truly an adventurer. And so she loved life. She loved God. She loved her family, and she loved to be outside. So she wanted to be on a plane, on a train, on a bus. So long story short, in 2020, by me being virtual, like a virtual teacher, I would see my mom, never knew anything was wrong.
Right.
I had a housewarming in the fall of 2020, and she came and she sat on my old furniture, and I was like, she's making it look like I need new furniture. But she never said a word. And so my aunt came to visit in October. I saw my mom on a Saturday. And by Monday morning, I had sat at the laptop to log in for virtual. And my aunt said, your mom is in the hospital having emergency surgery. I was like, what? And so basically, I knew that she had gone to the ER twice, but the doctors told she had a hernia in her esophagus. And she had been to the ER, but we didn't know. My brother and I didn't know. And as one of my good friends said, she said, Angie, your parents were as thick as thieves. They made a deal that they didn't want you to worry. And sure enough, about 2 or 3 years later, I had a dream that I knew she was sick and I was hovering over her so I said, that's why she didn't tell me. And it's really hard because I talk to lots of people whose parents got sick suddenly and they didn't know. But I do know moms don't want their kids to worry about them. And it's hard for us as kids because, I cried and I said, but I loved her. And somebody said, they said, she knew you loved her and she didn't want you to worry. Wow. And when I finally understood that, I could make peace with her passing.
So that was after you wrote the book.
Yeah. So she was able to read her book. I went home August 2020 to sign 30 plus copies for her extended family. She didn't say a word. She came to my house in September. I hugged her in October. She was in the hospital the last Monday of October.
Wow.
But I will tell you, I am a praying woman. I'm a woman of faith. And the Spirit whispered to me, you are going to carry the torch for your mother. And at the time, I thought she was fine. So I said, I know. And I was hiking and I was just outside walking in the sun. And then she went in the hospital and I said, I'm going to carry the torch for my mother. Lord, I don't know what that means, but whatever. Wow. I have goosebumps on this one. Whatever seeds she had in the ground that didn't fully come up, let me be the one to carry that for her. And you saw my vision board earlier. Right. One of the things that she had on her, for her plan, was to go to Kenya on a missions trip. So if you saw my vision board, it has lots of elephants on it. I've got elephants all over the house.
So you picked up where she left off.
Yes.
Got you.
So the crazy thing is, I've never wanted to be I'm a glamper. I like girly traveling. I want the hotel and the nice aesthetics. But I said, nope. Ma went on a missions. Well, she wanted to do a missions trip. I want to be able to do that in honor of her. Yeah.
Nice. Wow. So you navigate through that. You just, every day you pray through.
Listen. Yeah. I don't want to be controversial, so I'm not going to call any names. But there is a certain minister in September of 2023. He asked so I was watching him on TV, and he said, I want you to pray every day between September and December before you make any major decision. And I said, I can do that. So from September 2023 to December 2023, I prayed every day. That was the first time that I was intentional with praying.
Right.
And don't you know, in December 2023, again, I heard the Spirit say, tell her today this is it. And I said, what? I said, so that was my call to retire. So I had been thinking about retiring. And just praying those 4 months, I got the confirmation. yes, you can retire.
Wow.
And it was awesome. And I made a beeline to my principal when I saw her, and I said, I think you know what this is about. And she said, yes.
Wow. You mentioned that you lost everything one time.
Yes. So let's talk about the blessing. That sounds crazy to say it was a blessing, but you really learn about yourself in times of struggle. So I remember I said I was a workaholic, and remember I dated the devil and his brother, and I poured everything into this person, and I was not bearing fruit. So part of that, so I have a son who has schizophrenia.
Right.
And being a person that was really unfamiliar with that mental illness, I didn't really know I didn't know what resources were available. I didn't know really who I could turn to. I chose not to turn to my parents because they were older, and I didn't want to put undue stress on them. So I have a great support system in terms of friends, and my faith family. So I had other people that I could go to besides going to my parents. But not everybody's going to write a check, nor do I expect them to. So my brother was saying, Angie, you might want to ask our parents for help. And I was in that I got it stage. So because my son was unable to handle or keep a job, I was paying bills for him. I did not feel safe with him living with me. He was living with friends. So as I was paying all these things for him to keep his head above water, I was losing my stuff. So first it was the apartment, then it was the car. So I spent about 14 months living with a roommate. And at the point where I felt comfortable telling my dad what was going on and my mom, my dad stepped in and helped, but that's not what I wanted or needed. I spent half of that season really understanding codependency. Because if I had really understood that my son had a problem. But what I also had to understand is I didn't have to be the one to always bail him out.
Wow.
So what was happening, he would have a crisis, I'd drop everything and run.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you need money? I got you. And then I didn't have money. And then I was losing my stuff. So yes. So in 2019, I lost my apartment and my car, and thank God for good friends.
Right.
Thank God. And my brother, they helped me keep my sanity. But my possessions were gone, but there were some lessons I needed to learn about setting healthy boundaries.
Right.
So the same thing that my mom tried to teach me years ago, I didn't make that applicable to my son because I thought, well, he's in need, I'm supposed to help him. And I did it over and over and over again until I was depleted.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good right there. What would you tell a mom who's going through that right now? Because moms, they hold on so much.
I know.
That's good. What would you say?
So, I don't know if this part will be on our video or not. We talked about my time at the gym. So I thank God for this. Because I am retired, I get to go to the gym 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. And I get to sit in the sauna and I talk to moms. And I remember one day there was a mom in the sauna, and I don't mind sharing my story. If I feel led to, I'll share. And this lady looked at me and she said, I had a house and I gave it up because my daughter needed help. And I moved into the apartment with her. And now she decided that she doesn't want me there anymore. So here's a mom, kind of like me. She gave up what she had to take care of the daughter. And then the daughter decided, I don't want you here. My story is I lost everything in 2019.
Right.
And in 2020, my son blocked me and stopped speaking to me. So I haven't talked to him since January 2020.
Wow.
Right. So what I tell moms is, I can't tell you not to make a decision to help your child.
Right.
Because your heart is going to tell you to do.
Right.
But what I want them to know is, just because you give that sinking child everything, it doesn't mean that the relationship is forever.
That's going to help somebody.
And I'm going to tell you, this ceiling fan right here was installed by a father with a similar story.
Wow.
And he said that he has a son who hasn't spoken to him for years. And he talked about all the things he did for his son. So I don't want to label every helping parent in the same category.
Right.
But I will say my best friend has been my best friend since I was 8 years old. And she used to say, Angie, you can't give to him before you make sure your own needs are met. And I think that's the danger we have as parents. You know, we will give and give and give and give, and our children will take and take and take and take. And if nobody knows when to stop, it's really the giver that has to know, you know what? I've done enough. I've done enough. And this is real talk. The day that he blocked me, it was close to MLK weekend. And so I said, I got some time to go to MacArthur Mall. And I remember walking into one of those handbag stores that I never went to.
Right.
And I said, I can afford this. So in other words, there were things, not that you need a handbag, but there were things that I was denying myself of because I was making sure he had what he needed. And he was over 20 years, he was almost 30 years old. That's the part. When you're in it, you don't see it. So let me give you a real talk example. Okay. And I hope this helps a mom. I have a comedian friend who asked me, because he could tell that I was like on my last string. And he said, if you saw your son on the street right now, what would you do? Now, this was 2019, Angie. I said, I would go get a tent and a blanket, and I would be there right beside him. And he just, I know his mind was blown, but I had to walk through all of that to understand, Angie, this is not the way. This is not the way. So those healthy boundaries, that prayer, that support system, you need all of that in order to help you make sound decisions. Yes.
I can see that.
Yes.
I appreciate that, because so many mothers are dealing with that today, and fathers.
And fathers, yeah.
So as we close out, where can people find your books?
They're all on Amazon.
Okay.
And hopefully within the next week or so, they will also be on my website. So my website is angelinataylor.com. I am a blogger as well as an author of 3 books.
Gotcha.
And another book called Chronicles of a Cracked Pot should be coming out, if not this year, early next year.
Got you. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.